All right. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is another Lateral People Lunch. We are here today with Sally Bunnell, and it is my favorite way to do this is to have you do your own introduction. So I'm just going to hand it over. I'd love to have you explain to us what you're working on, what you've done, and then we dive in.
Yeah. Oh, to explain myself, I'm a wild
Not,
woman who's traveled
not
around.
everything.
Yeah, so I'm Sally Bunnell. I'm the CEO and founder of NaviSavi. NaviSavi is a video travel platform where everyday people can upload unedited vertical videos of places they recommend. And we go through and we approve every video to make sure you get the best browsing experience. And then we go through and we tag and make each clip bookable. So you can start building a video itinerary and then book it all within our platform. And then we've also started getting into content licensing as well. So now your everyday clips that we pay you up front, $1 per clip, can all go be licensed by major travel brands. So that's what we're doing. And I'm currently in London. So, and you told me, I had to tell you, you told me it was a lunch, but I was like, I'm going to have a British lunch. So this is my my lunch that I decided to have with you guys.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock here, so I thought it was really appropriate.
I'm doing the entrepreneur's lunch of I'll get to it at 7 p.m. So
well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and that is here. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Good. So we've known you from Voyager. I think that's where we initially met.
Yep.
And we were talking before we set this up about we were like the last humans we saw before COVID. So it's great to like start like we were in Voyager. It had just shut down. It was us.
Yep.
We were there saying goodbye to everybody.
I had 3 roommates. I was living at Voyager pretty much. I was like, I got to get out of here. Everyone's working from home.
So for people watching who don't know what Voyager is or was, Voyager was a travel tech incubator on 25th Street in Manhattan.
Yep.
And we had our podcast studio there for a long time, just to put people in loop. And Rob and Sally and I think, walked out through the freight elevator as the last people to ever leave Voyager before the pandemic hit. Like everything shut down immediately after we left.
And I miss that place so much. It was such like everyone I talk to when I come back to New York, they're all like, I'm like, we got to bring back Voyager. We got to bring back Voyager. So I don't know. Maybe we'll just have to start. Maybe it'll be NaviSavi's Voyager. So the new voyage is what we'll call it.
And worst case is you can always just kidnap John Matson and bring him in. And
just bring him in for the entertainment. So
yeah.
I know. When I was back in New York recently, I went to Sid's Gold Request Room, because that's where everybody used to go on like Thursday nights after our parties, and I was like, oh man, I remember a lot of good times in there.
My daughter is singing Greatest Showman in the background, so we may get that on the mic. We will see.
Somebody's mowing here in the UK. I didn't even know they had enough sunshine to get grass, but I guess.
You mentioned that that musical the other day, and so I watched that and The Sound of Music in the last couple of days. I was surprised how much it feels like it's auto-tuned.
Charles, how much time do you have on your hand to watch 2 of those back to back?
This is my world.
Okay, true.
Yeah. So what have you been up to? How's it like? What you've created is amazing. First off, like
I'm still going.
Very interesting to like see you assemble it, because it was not what it is now.
No.
Last time we spoke about it. So what's that journey been like for you as you're thinking about it?
Fucking terrible. But no, I mean, actually NaviSavi started as a TV show idea that I pitched. And so at the time I was working in music video production. I was head of a record label in New York City. So video content was very natural to me. So I had this idea of NaviSavi, which it was called something different at the time. But basically I was like, well, why don't I just create a show around myself traveling, and then you could basically watch and book along. So we shot a pilot and did that in 2013, and we pitched for about 3 years to Travel Channel, to all these places. And everyone said, well, does the platform, like the web component that you watch short videos, does that exist yet? And I was like, well, no, I figured we'll shoot the content and we'll partner with Expedia or somebody to go book the content, and everybody passed on us. And when somebody told me I wasn't Insta famous enough, and I was like, you just wait. So I was like, all right, that was 2016. I'd been at the record label for a decade plus, and I finally went and parted ways. And I was like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go be an influencer. And I realized, no, I am the anti-influencer. I am never going to be the girl that's like attractively like laying on the beach taking photos. It's me with a white shirt with like a big mustard stain. Like that's just how I roll, like everywhere I go. So so I basically, had this kind of show in that and thought I'm going to go out there and do that. So I had this blog that I'd started, and it was called Sally Travels, Follow the Journey and the Drunkenness. And it was pretty epic, but basically it was like how to buy Plan B in Sweden. Dolphin rape is real. Like some of the most classic things. I'm going to release it as a book still, but anyway, so I started working then with another kids brand, and they were like, Sally, you got to take this down. Like, we can't have you working with like this high profile kids artist and
Disney
brand.
princess.
Plus, and then it was Sally, Plan B in Sweden. They're just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Moana does Dallas,
Yeah, exactly. So I started to tame that down in 17 and really start to, actually, it was at Voyager in 2017. A friend told me about this tech and travel startup pitch night. And I attended that. And there was about 100 people that got up and they gave a quick 30 or 60-second pitch. I knew nothing what I was doing. And I remember practicing in the mirror, having it written to be 60 seconds on the nose. And I got up and I pitched that night. And it was for a startup weekend where they basically come with an idea and they work on that idea. And my idea was voted in the top 10. So it got worked on. And I really always knew what I wanted to build. But basically I'd sat then with a small team, and they helped me basically create this idea of NaviSavi. Well, for me, it was like, I sat with JetBlue Ventures. I sat with all these big companies, and they were like, oh, well, video's too expensive and blah, blah, blah. And you need an itinerary planner. And I was like, I don't want to create another effing itinerary planner. Like, if photos, like, shoot me now. Like, I've always been the against like what the mainstream travel is. And I've just stuck to my guns on that for a very long time. And it's finally paying off. So that was 2017. And so I started being like, all right, maybe I've got something here. But I know nothing about tech. I knew nothing about travel. I mean, I was a traveler, but being on the other side of the business is completely different. And so then I basically really started to get involved with Voyager and going to some of their events and learning more about kind of the travel ecosystem and the startup scene. And so in 2018, I broke ground and I put down my first couple grand. My dad and I each put in a little pool and said, all right, we're going to work on developing this. And that's in 2018. I was really starting to build out what was the MVP. It was just like a blank. I mean, it was just a dummy version. It was like, and look at this and look at this. And it went nowhere, but it sure looked fancy on the phone. And so I did that for about all 2018. And I was living between Denmark and with my partner at the time, hence why I still love Carlsberg, but not Denmark. But so I was finally, like, in 2019, actually April 1st, 2019, he and I ended up breaking up. And I thought, and it was a bad breakup. It was to the point I was like, you know what? F this. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to fully go for this thing, because nothing is more dangerous than a motivated, scorned woman. And I was like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go raise me some money. So here I am calling up friends and family saying, do you want to give me money for this idea? I'm rolling with it. Like, I've done like the homework. And so friends and family threw me some cash. We had about 60,000 and I got moving. So I was working with a team in New York. Didn't end up, it was supposed to be ready in, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. That was in May, June, July, August, September. For F's sakes, it was January before I was even getting anything. And I was entering, I got chosen to, they had a big female pitch night for travel in New York. And I presented it at Microsoft at those offices. And so we had a lot of momentum. I was ready to get this sucker out there. It was still very, very basic MVP. Basically, you could upload a video, watch it, and that was pretty much it. But so I was ready to launch April 1st. And lo and behold, COVID hits in March. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, is it going to be 2 weeks? Do we just wait a little bit? What's going to happen? And at that time, I was not happy with my tech team. So I started calling this guy in the UK that I'd known. His name's David, and I used to not work with him. He and I met in 2006 at the pool at the Standard Hotel in Hollywood. And he was a music artist manager, and I was out there directing music videos, and we just maintained friendship. And he had retrained as a software engineer. So as he retrained as a software engineer, I was like, him and his two buddies from code school, I was like, do you want to take a stab at building this thing? Like, they had put in for the initial bid, and I went with the other team because I thought they have zero experience. Well, they ended up they were just like three lads getting drunk in Edinburgh, Scotland during the lockdown. And all they did was code. And so they built me the first version of the app that fall. And then they worked on kind of a secondary, more escalated version. And we went, and I was like, damn, I am going to put this on the App Store April 1st. It wasn't, quite 2021. So then it was 2 years after I had originally planned, but that was the first inception of NaviSavi being out in the world. And I remember calling a bunch of influencers because I tell them about the app. Oh, and I was like, you're sitting at home, you're not able to travel, you're not monetizing that content anymore. I'll pay you $1 for every video. And I mean, I had so many influencers mad because they were like, it's crashing, it doesn't take video, it's slow, it was
I just worked 4 hours for my $1.
Oh yeah. I mean, they were earning their keep on that thing. Many of them are no longer my friends. No, I'm kidding. Few stuck with it, in the support, but that's how I was basically just getting on influencer calls back to back saying, try their platform. They even had to download, I remember, for test flight. So we had to get them because we weren't even on the App Store yet with some of them, and to populate it. So it was a hell of a journey. And 2021, that was my official, I did a little welcome coming out launch party in Omaha, Nebraska, where I'm from, Nebraska, a little town of 700 people, but I did it in Omaha because the whole town would come in Oxford, but there's nothing else to do. So I did it in Omaha and launched it same time as College World Series. And so I got written up in the paper, and it was one of those shining moments. And then basically we had a lot of momentum and we're getting things going. And the end of 2021, we had an investor who was looking at putting in $1 million, an angel. And the deal was always, it wasn't his fault, but he was constantly waiting on another deal to close. And we waited 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And before you know it, here I'm like, holy shit, the company's running out of money. I have people that I have employed. I start going into my bank account because I'm like, I've got to have to lay people off. It's just what I'm going to have to do. Well, here I basically just plan to lay off everybody. And then I get a call, a LinkedIn message out of nowhere from Meta. And I'm like, Meta? Is this a joke? I remember I was in Ibiza and I was a little tipsy and I was like, what? Is this person real? So anyway, I followed up with them and ends up, I basically, they picked NaviSavi to do a test pilot as they were launching Facebook Reels. And they were looking for apps that had native videos that could share to their platform. So this meant I needed developers and I couldn't afford them. And I basically just started going into my savings. And I was like, I've got to do whatever it takes to secure this partnership, So I basically, was basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. And at that point I was still working part-time at a record label as I was doing everything. And yeah, that was a hell of a year. And that was the end of that year. We got all the partnership and things done. And the record label was like, Sally, you're working too much on NaviSavi. Just go do it full time. And so then I was jobless and I had no money, and I was turning 40, living in my parents' house as a digital nomad. When you have no money, there's nowhere else to go but home. So my 40th really sucked. I was in Nebraska. I was like, is this really how it's supposed to start? But so yeah, that was pretty much a good chunk of, that time frame, 2022, and and fundraising was impossible.
Yeah.
You couldn't get any money from anybody, and let alone a female founder, a sole female founder. We get 2% of all fundraising. That is insane. And then to have a consumer facing app and in travel, I mean, you're just asking for a death wish. Like nobody will touch you on that. So I basically just kind of kept the lights going on NaviSavi using my unemployment money, basically to keep people employed, to like approve videos. And the government will probably come after me, but after hearing all this, so I was just doing anything and everything I can. And finally this last, we were still getting interest and people were uploading and opportunities. We had booking.com signed with us, but it just wasn't, you don't have any money to push it. You don't have,
Yeah.
So anyway, it was this summer. I remember I was on my bed in my old bedroom that I went to high school in, and I was crying in my room, and my parents came in and they sat on the bed and they said, Sally, I think it's time to close NaviSavi. And I'd borrowed some money from them too. And they were just like, it's time. And I remember just bawling and thinking, dear Lord, if this is supposed to happen, can you please just give me a sign? And there was no light of bolting. Nothing happened. But about 2 weeks later, I got a message from Techstars, and it said, you've made it to the first round of Techstars. And I was like, so you're saying there's a chance, I am not giving up on this thing. My parents are just seeing their daughter unmarried living at their house. And, I used to be the head of a record label, and how the mighty have fallen, So that was this past year. And then we made it to the second round, and then we made it to the third round, and we got chosen. And I hadn't heard yet. So I flew all the way to Stockholm. And it was a Sunday, and I just arrived to meet with my business partner there because that's where he lives. And we just went out for a drink, and I was like, I think we got to close the company. I haven't heard from Techstars, nothing. And we literally got an email while we were there from Techstars. And I was like, I don't even have enough freaking money to fly us to Tulsa to participate, but I have airline miles. So, So that was pretty much, they sent us the first $20,000 check, and then another $100,000, and then another fund came on from Nebraska. And since then, we were in Techstars in Tulsa from October to January. And boy, was that an experience for my very, very, I don't know how to describe them, vegan, all about green, very liberal. And I was like, honey, this money is coming from Tulsa. It's all about oil and Republicans and meat. So shut your mouth and we're going to enjoy it.
Here's your vegetarian beans. We only use pork in them.
The best part was I was craving Arby's. So I took him to Arby's one night, and it was a late night after the bars had closed. And I remember we went through, and he's like, he's British. He's like, do you have anything vegetarian? And the girl was like, I think we have a turkey bacon sandwich. I was like, yeah, people don't even know what it means around here. So anyway, and I was like, I should have told you the slogan's "We gots to meats," I didn't even think about it. It's like, you can get the curly fries probably, but that was about it. So anyway, we had a blast in Tulsa, and that was really focused on underrepresented founders. I may have checked the LGBTQ plus button as well. I don't know, but no, it was a great experience. And we came out of that and really started to double down on our B2B sales. And right now we just closed Q1 sales at $100,000 ARR. So, and that's before the platform even launched. It's not even out yet. So we've been doing that with our content licensing library. We just got a grant from Nebraska, a $100,000 grant to build the portal in Nebraska. So David's experiencing more Midwest. He loves it. No, no, but and now we're out fundraising 1.25 million. So we've almost got half of that confirmed in the round already. So
that's awesome.
And now we're gonna like go out there and blow this sucker to the world finally and disrupt travel. Only took, you know what they say in the music business, like you're overnight success, and it's like 10 years. I was a young lady when I started this project, but look at me now.
Yeah, it's coming together. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the journey. And I hope you didn't ask for the short version because I gave you the whole Yeah, how long is this podcast?
Well, thank you for coming. It's been really good talking with you.
There's my beer. I've been so busy blabbing on this side. But so yeah, that was the whole journey. And you know, I think people don't always talk about the real struggles, and we're not out of the woods yet by any means, you know, but it's startup life is not easy, and it's a passion and grit, and you know, they don't call me Rally Sally for nothing though. Like I just keep going. So if I can get this sucker, I've already got another idea that for the music industry, like it's just becoming much easier. And I can see why they say like, oh, have you started a company before, and why they're more likely to invest in you in your second company than your first, because the second one's going to go pretty easy, I think. So I've already learned the hard way. So
you have hit every branch. You know them all intimately.
Exactly. If I can do a B2B, platform in music, I think I'm set. So
I'm
finally learning. But
so what's the connection side been like for you? So like Voyager was good at building community, but when they went away, it's a very fragmented, or my impression was it's a fragmented industry.
Yes.
What's that like pulling the dots together look like for you?
Well, I've always been a big in-person meetup. Like I think that's how deals are done. That's the community that you build. And I found several communities around the influencers and the content creators. There's a thing called TravelCon in the US, where it's a bunch of travel creators. They have similar ones here in, where am I at? London. The Traverse Network. I was at an event with them last night. So you start seeing these pockets of communities, and then also just really being into the scene. Like I attend WTM every year here in London. I attended ITB. I was in New York at their travel and adventure and IMM, or everything that they had that week. And it's really, you start seeing a lot of the same people. Funny enough, I was this year in January after Techstars, I went to New York doing some fundraising, and then I had to jump to Nebraska for 5 days, and I flew from Nebraska to Singapore for an aviation festival. Then I had to fly to Berlin. Then I flew to London, and my body, I literally lost a whole day, but I was seeing people literally on my flight from Singapore to Berlin because everybody was going to the same conferences. So you really start kind of building that network. And funny enough, like most of my team that I brought on is from that network. So just, keeping those partnerships alive and seeing people in person. And, I still think a lot of deals are done over beers. So that's the music industry person. But, I've sat in a lot of board meetings, and I remember when we would sign bands and they'd be in board meetings left and right, and I would just take the band out and party, and they'd be signed. They were like, how do you do? I don't know. I just show them a good time. I
mean, it makes sense. Is the relationship? Can we work together? Can we be together?
Yeah.
There's something about like sitting in a room around an oval table that doesn't really prepare you for that.
Oh yeah. You need to go out and get shit faced with somebody and know if you can work together. Yeah. Like it was funny at ITB in Berlin, because we're still a little struggling startup, but I brought down my sales guy. He's from Latvia. He's British, but lives in Latvia. David lives in Stockholm, and I'd flown in, and I was like, I'm not paying for 3 hotels for 5 days. No, boys. It was basically a giant open room. I got the big bed. Frank got a little bed, and David slept on the couch. And I was like, yep, Queen Bee will get what I want, and you boys,
make it work.
One was snoring, the other one had the earplugs. It was like, this is startup life. Like, you guys remember this? Like, we will all sleep, and they're both, have partners, and I was like, yep, no, there's nothing romantic about this, so nobody has to worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of life, but no, it's fun, and I just enjoy being able to, you work 10 times harder on your own projects than you ever would for another person, and I don't know, it's just a sense of pride and feeling of like, this is my baby. And people always ask at 42 if I have any kids. And I said, well, I've got twins, Navi and Savvy, right here. So they've been on the tit for a long time, 10 years. So they cost more than children, unfortunately, I think. So
Yeah.
Where did the travel bug come from for you in the beginning? Because you've hit a lot of countries in your career.
I have 113 is where I'm at.
What got you started, and what kept the engine going for wanting to travel that much?
Yeah, well, because I had never been on an airplane until I was in my 20s. I'm from a little town in Nebraska, 700 people. There's a puddle jumper, but the major airport is Denver, which is 5-hour drive, or Omaha, which is about 4.5 for us. So traveling, my parents never flew. We would get in the old car and drive to Yellowstone, but we weren't flyers. So that was never really a possibility. And I remember my very first flight was out of Omaha to Phoenix. And I was so nervous. And I was like drinking this red slushy at the airport, and it kept being delayed. And I puked the flight, my first one. And it was like, oh God, like flying's not for me.
Yeah.
And so that
and
first
of course, a red dye slushy is the perfect thing.
Oh yeah. And then we were just like circling over Phoenix like this, and I get car sick anyway. But so it was like, that was kind of the first, like, okay, can I do this? Can I not? And then I took a trip to California with my dad. So we flew. So it's like I kind of started getting the little bug. And then in college, I had to fly. I remember when I had my internship with David Letterman. So I had to fly out there to interview. And I remember I was a senior in college, and I said to my dad, it's like, I just got an interview with David Letterman, like, will you go with me to New York? And the first thing he says was, hell no, I'm not going to New York City. I had to fly to New York City by myself. And this is a totally crazy story too. So my grandmother is originally from New Jersey. So very, very long story short, my grandpa was a pilot in World War II with her brother. They're both named George. And they started writing letters back and forth for cookies and whatnot, pen pals, and they end up marrying each other. So my grandmother gets taken back to Nebraska and lives there, but I have all this family in New Jersey and New York that I've never met. So she handwrites letters for when I go out to visit New York for the first time. So I have like one of my relatives owns a taxi company in New Jersey in Ridgewood. So they picked me up and they took me I stayed at this like kind of like, I remember I stayed near it's funny now after living in New York for almost 20 years. I stayed in Times Square, and it had a shared bathroom. It was this big, and it was literally across from the Late Show. And I remember I'd walked the wrong direction, and I was like on like 9th Avenue, and I was so scared. I was like, I am out, Mom, I don't know where I am, And now I like drunkenly like go to the nightclubs over there all the time. But yeah. So I remember like that like was kind of the first piece of like my travel and like getting me into like, all right, I can do this. And I then shortly after that, and I'd moved to New York, I gotten then the job at the record label. And so when I was at the record label, I actually got picked. I was hosting Red Carpet for a country music channel, Australia. I met them at the CMT Awards when it was in New York that year. And so here I was. My first international trip was me flying to Australia. And It couldn't have been the worst trip because I went from New York to San Fran to Sydney, and Sydney to Tamworth. It was 24 hours flying. It was on one of those old school where it was like 4, 8, and 4. And I was second to last row in the middle 8. And I was like, I remember just thinking like, this is going to be the longest effing flight of my life. And I remember popping 2 sleeping pills and 2 shots of Jack, and I knocked out, luckily. So, and yeah, and that was the first event, and I figured any flight from this can't be any more difficult. So everything else was a pop, skip, and a jump. And
so I flew in on a similar plane, and we got struck by lightning flying into Sydney, and the lights went out, and the plane just like plummeted, and then it reset, and it came back up. But everyone was asleep. I was like, I couldn't sleep. I was up. I basically raw dogged 18 hours, right? Like I couldn't sleep. And then that happened, and I was just like,
oh my God.
We were 4.5 hours from an airport. We were Eastern Oregon to Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
And then we flew that to San Fran, and then San Fran to Sydney.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
the longest
horrible.
flight. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I recently the longest flight I just pulled again was San Fran to Singapore. I think that was 18 hours or something that I flew. And it was, I wasn't usually, most of my trips were inspired by breakups because I just wanted to get out of town. And so when I worked at the record label, I would.
How far away can I go?
Oh yeah. Cause at the record label, I was flying New York to LA constantly. So I racked up so many miles, hotel points, and in video production, it's not like you work a Monday through Friday. We're working weekends, and I would go out and on tour and like help do tour creative. And so I would be working like 3 months straight, and I'd tell the boss, I was like, I finally have a break. Can I go? And he let me go for 3 weeks when I went to Australia, and then I got a month, and people were quite jealous, I think, of that. But I would just basically like, I'm going to go to Europe, and I'm going to hit as many. I did a Kentucky tour, and I hit as many countries as I possibly could. I think I got like 10 countries in on my first trip. And then it became a challenge. And I was like, well, I got 10 that one. How much can I get on the next one? Yeah. And I remember having this breakup with this guy in New York. And I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm going on vacation. And I remember telling my boss, I was like, do you mind if I go on vacation next week? And he's like, where are you going to go? I was like, I think I want to go to Egypt. And he's like, if you can plan a trip to Egypt in 5 days, do it. And I did. And I flew to Egypt. I knew nothing about a visa. I didn't know what visas were. And luckily it was a visa on arrival. So like, I'm raw dogging it. I'm figuring it out.
Show up
in Egypt alone, like, but I was fine. But it was like, those were usually like the sporadic moments of these trips. But I'm just like, I'm just going to do it. And so usually I always joke that I have more ex-boyfriends than I have airline miles, which is quite a bit, but they're usually spurred by one or the other. X, more miles. So yeah, that's my travel.
What is your high score on a vacation as far as countries?
My high score of how many
countries have you hit in one? No, not on the dating side.
Okay, yeah, I got a counter there too. I'm during one massive breakup. I flew to Ibiza, and then I just decided last minute, and I did Belarus and Ukraine in 2019, and then Moldova, Transnistria, Albania, Bulgaria, the whole Kosovo, that whole region, all the way up. So that was probably a good 12 countries on that one. Yeah. And then I just did another breakup. I flew New Year's Eve 2 years ago. I can't remember. I was in Vegas for New Year's, and this guy and I ended up not working out. So I flew to LA to stay with a friend. And then I was like, there's a flight. I can get to Cape Town, South Africa, literally. So I had my parents open up my passport to me. I went to fucking Goodwill, bought some swimmers and some shorts, and I got on a 24-hour flight, LA to London, London to Cape Town on my birthday. So that was a doozy too,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and then
Well,
I
it
lied.
explains why you're doing what you're doing, right?
Oh yeah. So, and people are always like, "Are you gonna slow down? You need to slow down and get married." I was like, "Slow down! I need a man that can keep up." Like if you're, funny enough, I did date this guy recently, and he has fear of flying, and I didn't find this out until after I met him. He's from Argentina, and he took a boat to get to Europe. I'm not kidding. Like he flew one time. He flew the first trip from Argentina to Europe, and now he refuses to fly anymore. And so he has a book out and this and that, and he talks about like his fear of flying. And I was like, "How do you think we're ever going to work?" He's like, "Well, I can train after from here to meet you." I was like, "I'm already going to be in the next freaking country, honey. Like, you figure out your disease or illness, and then we can talk. But I'm not going to train around." So,
Yeah.
that's
Have you heard of the train ride for writers that Amtrak used to do, where you would start in New York and you would get off in like wherever, and it was a writer's residency. You would just get on and go, and at the end of it, you were expected to have written something. But it was back in the day they used to do this, which I think is brilliant. Like that would be a lot of fun.
So I always write my book when I'm on my on a flight. So whenever I write like one of these crazy stories, like dolphin rape is real, I'll literally write seat 37A, like where I'm at, where I'm heading to, and just so I like have a memory of that as well. But
yeah.
And do you remember when JetBlue did that all-you-can jet pass, and you could just jump on any flight that they had for a month?
Oh, that was
and you could just walk to the airport and basically just pop. I went crazy. Oh yeah, that was a fun month.
Cool. Yeah. Have you done the India trips?
I just went to India last year. I went to Africa South Africa region. I've done Northern Africa, but I did most of like all of South Africa region from Botswana to Zambia, Zimbabwe, and down. And then I flew over and did India. I'm part of a group called the Wi-Fi Tribe. So it's a digital nomad group, and each month they go somewhere different. So I met them in Cape Town when I went last time, and then did some of that travels with them. And then I remember I connected in Oman, and I'd never been to Oman, but I had like a 3-hour layover. And I was like, do you think I can get out, see the city, and back in 3 hours? So I thought, well, what's worse that can happen? There's another freaking flight that goes to India later. So I get to Oman. I wait an hour to get in the line to get out.
Yeah.
So I go out and I get a taxi. I've got a video of it, the guy. And I was like, take me everywhere that you can in 1 hour and bring me back here. Like, just run the meter. So I did. He drove me all around in the city, and I got back, and I had about an hour to spare before my flight took off. But then as I come in, the line is insane to get back, check in. So I pulled this little blue-eyed blonde girl in Oman, like, I'm so sorry. My flight's going to leave. And so I got under the rope and got to the flight, and I was like, 112, baby. I am ruthless. I figure you have to have your feet on the ground in the city to properly have seen it. I don't just believe airports count. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's my. And anyway, so I went to India then for a month and had a blast, and then
yeah.
India's
crazy, but it's so fun. It's insane.
During Holi last year. Well, they should be calling that holy shit, because I did not get the memo that you're supposed to put oil in your hair. Well, my hair was pink for 2 months. They couldn't even dye it out. It stained my bleached hair. So it was, that was quite the experience. But no, I loved India. And then I went down to Sri Lanka for a month, and I fell in love with Sri Lanka. And then I was like, oh, do you know it's only $150 to get to the Maldives from Sri Lanka? So I thought I was gonna save the Maldives or like my honeymoon or like someplace, and I was like, screw it, it's right here. So I went and did the Maldives and did my own solo trip, female trip to the Maldives, and it was on like I didn't get a beach over water bungalow. I just got a regular bungalow. I wheeled and dealed. I got that for like less than $200. I stayed there a week, and I had the best time ever. Everyone on the island knew me. Like they were all like, "Oh, it's that single Sally girl." Everyone's there on like their honeymoons. I'm like, "Table for one, please." Every husband there was on their honeymoon, like looking at me like, "Shit, what's this girl doing here?" But yeah, that was story of my life. Just another. So Maldives was actually my 113th country. I'm possibly doing a project with Saudi Arabia, so that might be a new one that I get to hit. But that will be like I'll fly there in like 5 days notice. Like I do that all the time. People are like, "Sally, you haven't even booked your flight to Singapore and you leave in 3 days?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." Like I only book with points too, so I haven't booked a long haul flight in probably 10 years overseas. Like I've got a lot of enough miles to take care of me. So that's everyone's like, "How do you fly all over the place?" I'm like, "I'm not paying for it." So once you get going on the credit cards and you figure out the system. But that's my travel hack.
Yeah.
I've actually got this great travel hack that I'll tell you offline because it's so great that I can't even share it because other people will do it now. So that's maybe if you join NaviSavi and I see that you've joined NaviSavi, wink, wink, I'll send you my book, huh? It's so good. I can't tell you unless you join Navi.
Here's the code and here's the
let me tell you, let me get you hooked. So but so that's pretty much my crazy travel life. Nothing's ever changed. So
in all of that, what's the spot for you that's like or is there a spot for you that's just like, this is where my soul belongs?
I mean, I really do like the Nordic countries. Like I absolutely love Denmark when I lived there. Like me riding a bicycle every day and everybody's so clean and like things are easy. But when I close my eyes, when you're with your therapist, think about a happy place. I think about Thailand. There's little island in Koh Phi Phi, and it's just one region that you just like, that's it,
Yeah.
And you can get a massage for like $5 every day. So it's definitely on my, when I was last there, there's only one ferry boat that goes in and out of Koh Phi Phi at that time. I don't know about now. And I was like, I'm just going to have a calm night, get up, get on the ferry, get in, because I have a flight from the mainland up to Japan. And, nothing is ever calm. Gary from Galway and I ended up at the party. And before you know it, I was drinking buckets and blah, blah, blah. And I wake up the next day and realize it's like 10 a.m. And I realize the ferry leaves at 10 a.m. So here I am. So
you're swimming.
Over is shit. And I'm always about the idea of like, there's a will, there's a way. Like, I don't accept no for an answer for anything. So it's just, who else do I need to talk to? That's what if you say no, who else can I talk to? So I got like literally fishing around and I found out this guy has a speedboat and he's going to be going back to the island anyway. And basically, so I rented a speedboat. It was like $700. It was like it was cheaper than missing the flight. And I had a tour starting in Japan. So I was so hungover and I ate a cheeseburger I was waiting and I drank a beer, not thinking. The sea was angry that day, my friend. I shit you not. It was like this guy was driving like a madman and it was going boom, boom, boom. And I basically it was the roughest ride and I was hanging on for dear life and basically was like feeding the fish the entire trip. It was like probably the worst, one of the worst moments of like.
The 700.
Oh, yeah, $700 for this experience. Let me tell you, man. When I write that book, those are all going to be tax write-offs, right? I
Yeah,
can go back and file those.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's how it works.
So I've got
Yeah.
so many stories like that. Like, oh man, I was blind in Laos for 3 days. Like, I got a stomach amoeba in Peru. Yeah, I fainted in Athens, and oh man, like it's just the list goes on and on of
Yeah.
like my family's like, why do you still travel? And I was like, I don't know. Like, the only time I've ever been held up at gunpoint was in the States. Like, you know, I go
Yeah.
everywhere else in the world, and I was in Texas and I walked in on an armed robbery of a gas station. Like, leave it to Texas, you know?
Yeah.
Anywhere else in the
Mine
world.
was Mexico.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
What
and
happened?
like so we were down in Mexico, and my wife and I don't drink, but I like to drive. So we went on a mezcal tour,
I don't like to drink,
and
but I like to drive.
right.
We should hang out more.
So exactly. I'm the perfect DD. I went to the guy. It was like this guy and his son, and I said, "Will you drink the mezcal and let me drive the Jeep?" And he's like, "Yeah, that sounds great." So he hops in the back, and it's like we drive out into the middle of nowhere. We go place to place to place, and we ended at his house. And his wife cooked us beans, and I taught his son how to rope. And like I'm from Hicktown, so
all in the wrist.
Yep. And so I taught him that because he was, and we hung around. They liked us a lot. And on the way back, and I'm sure this is a setup. I am like 100% sure this is a shakedown scheme. So we're coming back, and the army comes out they surround the Jeep. He stops it's a roadblock in the middle of nowhere. There's 8 guys with machine guns around us, and it's just us sitting in the Jeep. And he goes out and talks to them. And I don't know what he said to them, but I'm pretty sure because the way we did the trip, we were not the asshole tourists. We were just like hanging out with him and his family. But they were like, "Oh, okay." And they walked away and let us go. But I'm pretty sure that we would have been leaving with a whole lot less cash if we had not done the trip that way.
They so shake down all the
Yeah.
time. Like, it's bananas right now.
But was the only time that I've 2 times in West Virginia. But that was like selling books.
West Virginia's
that was selling books in West Virginia door to door. Like, of course I got guns pointed at me. That's a different thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. How about you, Charles? No gunpoint stories for you?
Just a misunderstanding at the main gate of the army post that's next to Arlington National Cemetery. I forgot that I didn't have my dad's sticker on my vehicle, and my dad's an army colonel, so I'm used to driving through the front gate of any army post without being stopped. and I
were stopped.
the truck and I was stopped, and there was an M16 right by the door.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Holy cow! Yeah, that would freak you out a little. I did go when I was in South Korea. I did the DMZ. I always call it the TMZ, but the DMZ. And basically, you can go right up to it, and they're like, yeah, they're like, if you cross the line, they can shoot you. And there's just that little part of me that's like, like you just kind of, I just want to put the toe.
Are you sure?
I'm literally always pushing the envelope for like anything in my life, and it's like, you sure? Like, it was, people. I remember once the Wi-Fi tribe was like, "Oh, like I'll do anything to get my way sometimes," but I'm like, they basically only allow so many females and males on the trip, and I was like, I am identifying as male. You can call me Sal, like like I'm like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on this trip. I'm gonna go on this trip. So, well, there's a will, there's a way. So,
yeah.
My mom.
You're crazy for travel. You're crazy for music and video production, all that stuff, and now software development.
Not crazy for software development.
No. But creating companies, startup,
Yeah.
the startup.
Yeah.
So what kind of giant sphere fascinates you that you've never really wandered into yet? What do you want to do that would take up so much time in your life you can't do it right now?
Two things. And people always are like, are you serious? I would like to be a lay preacher because I'm good at like motivating people, but I've already done all the naughty stuff. So then I can talk about how to find
And
God.
here's why abstinence until the age of 55 is a good idea.
This literally, I when I go home and I have a niece and two nephews, and I was like, there's only 2 rules, kids. No sex without a condom and no drinking and driving. You'll be fine. Like, and my sister's like, Sally. And I'm like, it's hard knocks life. That's the truth. Like this age and stage. But, and also I'd like to be a professor, a college professor, and come back. And like, I was offered by my university in Lincoln to come back and like talk to the classes and like, you know, just about my journey and stories and female founder and everything. And there's something I could see myself like having a class on like rock and roll or startups or I don't know, something music industry. I've lived quite the life.
Being an adjunct is amazing. And
being
an adjunct and they love people like you. Yeah. So you might. I mean, you could probably have a ring of them that you're doing.
Well, they're probably
It doesn't pay.
Just kidding.
I think I got like probably $8 an hour for when you
I just like to
do the math.
Sit around and talk with the youngins.
Yeah.
Inspire
share
them.
knowledge and
you know, like, and I did that like with Nebraska. I came back when I was in New York at the label. I actually started an internship program to bring a Nebraska kid in the video production out in Nebraska to New York City. And it was like, you know, it was like a once in a lifetime opportunity that they wouldn't get anywhere else. And you know, it was kind of funny because most people would go to the David Letterman and they just get cat food for people. You know, it was like pretty. And I was like, oh no, I remember I flew this gal. We were in LA. I had a yellow Corvette convertible and I had her drive because I'd been drinking. And then I was sitting on this rock star's lap as we're going down Sunset. I'm like, just get us back to the Standard Hotel. I was like, I wanted to do a TV show around The Intern. And it was like basically interns trying to keep up with me. But, you know, that's another show idea. I'm just full of ideas. I just don't have enough time to do them all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure your audience is like, who in the hell did you bring on this time? Usually you probably have a very nice, calm conversation. People talk about their life. And I'm just like,
well, the show, the whole idea behind Lateral People started because like we're all crazy. And all of our friends are kind of crazy. And like it's just all different flavors, right? So
there's no one on this show who is just an accountant.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
When you have a stream of conversation and it covers like 14 spheres, like that's probably like average. The fact that we can ask you what other thing you want to do and you had at least 2 means you're in the right show.
Oh yeah. My business partner, he always jokes that he was like reading something. He was like, signs of ADHD, and it was like basically me.
It's just your picture. And
it was just my face.
From it.
When we moved to Tulsa, he and I, we've always worked remotely. So when we moved to Tulsa, we got an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment there. So I lived with my business partner for 3.5 months. So I was like, we're either going to really be friends or we won't have a company at the end of this. I don't know which is going to happen, but you know, anyway, we learned a lot about each other, but he was like, yeah, I think you might want to get that checked out. I'm going to funnel you into your next project. You know, it's just like fucking nut job. But, you know.
The comedian who described ADHD as living with a graveyard of agency businesses.
You know, there's little piles. I put things in piles and he's just like, what the hell are you doing? But that makes sense to me. I know where everything is. Like,
Yeah.
it's color coordinated, but
What it is like you design a calendar system that will keep you perfectly organized and then lose the calendar. And it's like, yep,
that's
yep,
me. That is
yeah.
exactly me. Yeah. To a
Uh,
T, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I love is like I'll get really into a system. I'll teach somebody else it. They'll go on to do it for the rest of their lives, and I will have forgotten about it. And like 8 years later, they're like, "That thing you told me was amazing." And like, if I could have done it for at least another 3 days, it would have been amazing. I'm sure.
I would have stuck with it. I've had that with people that came back and was like, "Hey, thank you so much, like for such and such." Actually, I went to this. My friend, they were a rock band from Peru, and I met them in LA. They were recording, doing some stuff, blah blah blah. Anyway, I ended up basically helping him out, and they were trying to get broke in the U.S. or break in the U.S. And anyway, fast forward years later, and I get an invite to his wedding, and I am I am a tall blonde woman, and my boyfriend at the time was a tall Danish guy, also blonde. And we stuck out like a sore thumb at a Peruvian wedding because they're all pretty small and dark haired and speaking Spanish. Anyway, I asked him, I was like, why did you invite me to this? This is like a very personal thing. He's like, remember you helped me get my visa for America? And I was like, I did? I was like, really? Oh,
You changed
nice
my life, and you're like,
nice of me. You wrote a letter that I signed, maybe. Okay. It's like, changed his life. So good on me,
Robin and I have been trying to figure out how we actually can charge for that sort of thing, because we tend to throw off little statements or little ideas that change someone's life, and we
Yeah.
never get paid for it.
Yeah.
I
This is a
I
new
saved
business
a
idea.
friend. I saved a friend's business and a $34 million deal, and it's like that was 5 minutes, but like it would have been nice to see some of that because I'm having trouble paying the mortgage right now.
Oh, I have a story
Yeah.
to tell you. So when I was at the label, my boss, he'd invested in a movie. I sold a movie that I'd never seen at Sundance. I end up, so I know we probably don't have a ton of time, but this is the exact same story of this is I'm flying in because I would just party at Sundance. I've never seen a movie at Sundance. I've been 8 years in a row. And I mean, I'm just a next level. Anyway, so basically I'm flying New York to Salt Lake, and this gal next to me, I can tell she's kind of pregnant, and it starts getting really bumpy, the flight, and like super scary. Like, and I'm pretty calm, and she basically is needing assistance to be talked down. And so I basically end up like holding this gal's hand for like 3 hours, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's okay. So I'm drinking as well. And anyway, we land, and come to find out, she works for the Weinstein Company. And she's like, thank you so much for helping me. Like this, like, please let us take one of the Weinstein vehicles back to your place. So from the airport back to Park City, blah, blah, blah. She's like, and also, what's this movie that you were telling me about your boss? Like, I'd love it if Harvey and I could go. And anyway, so I basically ring up my boss, and I'm like, can you get him 2 tickets? Blah, 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 blah. Asshole doesn't even get me a ticket, gets those 2 tickets. I don't even go to the movie. Anyway, they see the movie, and she calls me and was like, I didn't see you there. We must have missed each other. She's like, we love the movie. Can you set up a meeting? So I set up a meeting between my boss and the Weinstein Co. And basically she's like, we'd love to have you at the meeting. Lo and behold, I'm partying at James Franco's house till 7 a.m. I've completely overmissed the meeting. And they come out and they basically sign a 7-figure deal on the movie. And I was like, do I get anything? Like, I should be getting a broker's fee for this. Like, I sold a movie I'd never even seen before at Sundance. So anyway, I'm still waiting to cash out on that shit. But anyway.
Yeah. I started, it's like, if you'd like to, you can pay me what you want to. It's like, I'm going to help you anyway. But if you'd like to, you can pay me what you want to. And people have done it, which is kind of So
It's a gesture. They should.
yeah. And it's like whatever it was worth, like I'm not going to come after you, but whatever it was worth, just send me some
I'm
money.
going to start doing that. I'm just
I
going to
got a
start.
check in the mail with a thank you note. He was like, you saved our, and it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah. If I save 34 million, I better be seeing at least a comma in that. In that check. Maybe 2 commas. I don't know.
Yeah.
Doop, doop. That would be nice,
Mm.
So where are you guys at? Are you both in New York, New Jersey?
I moved up to Cornwall in New York.
Cornwall.
Yeah,
Sounds like
Hudson Valley. It's really nice.
Nice.
Slow. Old house. The kids like it. We catch frogs in the ponds. It's like that sort of life.
That's my dating pool right there. A lot of kissing a lot of frogs and ponds.
Yep.
I'm on a Spitta Beach, south of Myrtle Beach, living on a golf course above my parents' garage right now because my mom has Alzheimer's, and so I am here to cook dinner.
Yeah.
And take her to doctor's appointments. It's been a whole adventure, but I wouldn't miss it for the world,
Yeah. I'm fearful. My mom, my grandma had it really bad, and I keep watching my mom like eyeing her like little things she does. I'm like, you better not put an eye out on you. But no, it's a super tough process to go through, but you're what a good son,
Thank you.
If my mom didn't know, I just put her in the home and call it a day. I'd take her everywhere with me. Travel her around.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't remember, it might as well all be new.
Yeah. Just read. And this, look at all this, I actually took my mom on her first trip. Well, my mom doesn't have a passport. No one in my family has a passport. Go figure. And so I took my mom because I was presenting at the Women Travel Summit something in Puerto Rico. And so I was like, do you want to come with me to this conference? I've got obviously an extra ticket. And she was like, Puerto Rico, and she was like, do I need a passport? I was like, no, you can go to Puerto Rico. So I took my mom. She refused to walk anywhere without me. She was too scared to leave the hotel. But I took her to these travel party events, and they were jamming music. And my mom's just like, oh, and she has one cocktail, and I could tell she was tipsy at one point. She was leaning over a bench eating a taco. I was like, oh God, KB, Karen's hitting it hard. She's maybe a $1.05 weight wise or less, and she's about 4.5 foot tall, but yeah, she partied like a trooper. So, but yeah, maybe I'll start doing more trips with mom. But I went out and partied one night. I got her up to her room. I got her drunk and then got up to her room and put her in bed. And then I was like, I'm going to go hit the clubs. Anyway, she woke up in the middle of the night and I wasn't there. And she was so worried because she didn't know where I was and what would she do if I didn't come home and where would she get home? And I'm just like, you'll be fine. This is what I do all the time when you're not here. So I make it home. Don't know how, mysteriously, but part of the process, Karen. It's part of the process. It's different taking her on the trips and she sees you in your everyday life versus only visiting when I'm in Nebraska. So,
Does she want to go again? Does she want to go other places?
I don't know. We'll see. It's an adventure for her. I think she enjoyed seeing something new. She's like, and things are written in Spanish. I heard her other people I'd never been to a country where the first language isn't English. They were all talking in Spanish. I'm like, you can go to Walmart and hear that, Mom. Walmart to tell Spanish, but
it's also our country. That's
exactly.
the territory of the United States.
I know. I mean, bless her heart. That's what we say in the Midwest. Bless her heart. So it was quite the experience. So yeah. I was going to get them passports for their they had their 75th wedding anniversary recently, or 50th. Sorry, they're not that old. 50th. But I was like, I'm going to get you guys passports and go somewhere. And, that's fine. We'll just drive to Denver. I was like, okay. I can't do them anything, but that's, I have to bring the fun to that family. So,
Yeah.
you got to do what you got to do. Keep them going. So,
trust me, you need a passport to go to Las Vegas. We'll just get them for you.
Yes.
Hey, why does that sign say Panama?
Yeah. I just start playing the song. I did that. I basically bought 4 tickets to Paul McCartney. Didn't tell them, and because my mom's like, she's so cheap, like bless her heart, but painfully cheap. And I told her Paul McCartney was coming, and I was like, we got to go to this. It's really expensive, so I just basically bought the tickets. And I told my mom that the record label gave them to me for free. Hopefully she won't watch this podcast. But anyway, so I took my family to Paul McCartney, and then I took my dad as well to Old Cella when they did like the Coachella for old people with like, oh yeah, it was like, man, it was McCartney, it was the Stones, it was Led Zeppelin, it was, or Roger Waters, and yeah, it was Bob Dylan. It was awesome. But I was like, yeah, I've got to book it. No one will do anything unless I just book it, and then they can't get out of it. So,
yeah. That's where the being cheap kind of plays against them.
Oh God, yeah.
But
that's why I'm in the market for a dog.
Yeah.
I will never adopt one unless I just pick one up.
Exactly. It just came home. I don't know. It just followed me. You got to do what you got to do. So, keeping them. That's what I did pretty much with a cat, and I was like, I'm just going to bring it home and see what happens. So, oh no, I don't know. Can't kick it out. So, try that with a horse. Pick that up on my husband.
All right. I think we should wrap it up here because we've gone past our hour, and we don't want to keep people too long if they've finished their lunch already.
Yeah. Well, they can have a beer with me if they choose. Then you can tune into the after show live from London. It's Sally Night Live. Party on this side. No, stick to lunch, Friday lunch. So,
all right. Yeah. So anybody who is interested in more of these conversations, obviously follow Mouth Media Network on LinkedIn, and you should get some notifications. And when we do our conferences again, it'll be lateralpeople.com. You can get notifications by signing up there. And NaviSaviApp.com is Sally's address for this wonderful tool.
NaviSaviApp.com. That's where you go. And then I'll give you your big surprise. Remember? I travel.
Yeah. Just let them know you watch this.
Luring them in. No, thank you guys so much for having me on. This was a blast. It's great to just catch up with you guys in general. And obviously, I've been called a lot of things, and boring's never been one of them. So always happy to be on the show.
Perfect. It was wonderful to see you again. Thank you.
Yep.